Oh, it doesn't want to scroll. Oh, there we go. All right. First, we'll review the core values of Together Facing the Challenge. It's about relationships, relationships between foster youth and foster parents, between foster parents and the agency, and the agencies and the county. We're going to be reviewing trauma-informed practice, recognizing that past trauma impacts current behavior, and therefore the approach we use with kids who have been through trauma. Everything's going to be based on that. This is an evidence-based practice. It's been through the tests, and we believe that fidelity to evidence-based practice leads to equal partnerships between foster parents and the agency and staff. We're going to use an educational approach, use strength-based in education with youth, and reject punitive and harmful measures. We're going to be talking a lot about discipline when we're going through Together Facing the Challenge. Intentional promotion of physical and emotional health. Successful agencies must be intentional in nourishing emotional and physical health amongst youth, family, and agency staff. Respect all aspects of the individual. We believe that race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, spirituality, and kinship connections must all be respected. Transition to adulthood. We believe that all caregivers share responsibility to teach youth skills to prepare for adulthood and professional growth. We believe agencies can best serve youth and foster parents when there's openness to professional growth. All right, so just a little bit about the history, and we may skip just a few of these slides. When we're talking about therapeutic foster care, you know, we're talking about fostering children who've been through trauma and need that higher level of care. This Together Facing the Challenge training has been researched, it's been tested, and there are a number of different counties throughout the United States who use Together Facing the Challenge as their initial training practices for new hires in an agency and new foster parents coming into it. So just a little bit about that. There have been observational studies, randomized trials, and randomized testing to prove the effectiveness of this training. So these are just some of the results. And it's just letting you know, it works. So as we're going through this training, paying attention and using the ideas and methodologies really can improve your foster parenting and your work as with an agency. So it was designed to strengthen relationships between agency staff and treatment parents, as well as between treatment parents and foster children. It was designed also to increase treatment parent skills, knowledge, and competence in the general areas of behavior management. And it also helps to enhance agency direct care workers' abilities and to adequately support and guide these efforts. So basically, when we're talking about getting on the same page as agency staff and foster parents and foster children, this is the page we're talking about. When we do our monthly trainings, we refer back to the ideas, the methodologies that are taught in Together Facing the Challenge. We refer back to it all the time. This is the baseline. This is the standards that we're using. All right, so there are 7 training sessions. We're going to condense it into 5. This counts towards your annual training. It ends up being 12 hours. I think it's 12 hours towards your annual training for your first year. So the first session is about building therapeutic relationships and teaching cooperation and setting expectations. These are the 2 trainings that we'll do today. Number 3 is using effective parenting tools to enhance cooperation. So when we talk about that, we're talking about discipline, setting expectations, building on that. 4 is implementing effective consequences. 5 is understanding the importance of having a healthy cultural, racial, and ethnic identity. 6 is assisting youth in the transition to adulthood. And 7 is teaching effective communication skills and taking care of yourself. And when we talk about that, we're talking about foster parents taking care of themselves so that you're healthy and well and can do your best as a foster parent. All right. So we'll be talking about the Together Facing the Challenge toolkit. If you haven't printed out the worksheets, that's the foster parent manual, basically. Get some blank paper because we are going to write some things down. We're going to do some exercises and help build some skills. All right, we're going to get started with session 1. Building relationships and teaching cooperation. Research shows that when foster parents have strong relationships with their youth and agency workers, youth do better in foster care. All right, so objectives for today. Understand that Together Facing the Challenge is an evidence-based practice. Understand the correlation between relationships and outcomes. Understand the impact of past trauma on current emotions and behaviors. Understand how uncooperative behaviors develop. Understand the ABC model. And we hear about the ABCs of behavior all the time in our monthly trainings. So we're going to really drive that home. Understand the key components of tracking a behavior to assist in development of an action plan to address the behavior. Okay, so there are 3 key factors in evidence-based treatment for youth. The supervisor-parent relationship, the youth-parent relationship, and effective use of behavior management by parents. All right, so the keys to building relationships with youth in our care. First, earn their trust. Role model appropriate behavior. Show them respect. Build on things that you and your child have in common. Find things that he or she are interested in. Be a good listener. Be honest. Have a positive attitude. Be patient. Be loving. And communicate clearly and frequently. Okay, so we're going to talk about the invisible suitcase. And we talk about the invisible suitcase quite a bit, and we'll certainly be talking about it a lot when we go through this training. So this is actually activity 1C. So if you have that worksheet, please go to that now. And if not, grab a blank piece of paper and write down TFTC activity 1C and your name. This will be just like junior high. You're going to want to write your name and the date on all of these because it's your proof that you did this training. All right, so on that first one, you're going to write down a statement that a child or a youth in care may hold about themselves. And then, of course, the next one, write down a statement that a child or youth in care may hold about their caregivers. And then write down a statement that a child or youth in care may hold about the world in general. And we'll take about 3 minutes to really think through that. Think about foster kids in care, some of the things that they've been through to inform your answers about these questions. And then we'll do that fourth one together. All right, go ahead and take yourselves off mute and share some of the things that youth in care may believe about themselves after the experiences that they've been through before foster care. Anybody? Ted, what were some of the things you wrote down?
Good.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Just checking. And what did you write down in the first box? Some of the beliefs that foster kids may have about themselves after their experiences.
Are you asking, who are you asking?
I'm asking you.
Oh. I wrote that a child or youth who doesn't have adequate care from birth parents may feel like they're unworthy of love.
That's a good one. That's a common one. Maria, what were some of the things that you thought of?
To me, it's the kids, it can trust somebody again, it can be safe, and that's beautiful what he's saying. I love you, and I can tell you this and that. That's beautiful. You know, it can feel safe.
I like that one. That's one I didn't write down in my box, was unsafe, and having that feeling of not being safe. And that, yes, there are things that we can do to help them with that. All right, so what about some of the things they might feel about their caregivers, about foster parents? What might be some of those beliefs? Ted, what do
May feel
you?
neglect.
Oh, go ahead, Samantha. Thank you.
May feel neglected.
Right. What do you think, Ted? Do they trust you right away?
They might say that the foster parents are just the same as their parents who abuse them,
Right.
unless they have already have their trust. Yeah.
Right. My trust is hard to find. Absolutely. What about the world in general? What are some of the beliefs foster kids might have about the world in general, school, institutions, going out in public in general?
They might be fearful of the world. The world is too big.
Fearful, absolutely, big. I like that. I'm gonna write that one down. One that I wrote down, because I've been through this training a couple of times, that I hadn't really thought of before, was that maybe they feel like they don't fit in. And that can be a hard feeling to struggle with. All right, and then we'll do this last one together. What is one thing you can do, either as a foster parent or as a direct caregiver, to help a child and youth repack their suitcase with some different beliefs? And Maria, you had talked about this a little bit on the first question. What are some of the things that you do to help kids who feel badly about themselves or feel untrusting or scared? What are some of the things that you do?
The first time I talk, what do you scare, you know? And I talk to, nothing happened, everything be okay. You be safe, and you have to, whatever happened, I'm here for you. You want to talk to me, and talking about anything, you can, you can talk to me. Is you have to be, and the kid had to know you there no matter what, no in condition, no you have to talk like what is happening for this and that, and the kids, believe me, is changed. I see, I'm talking to teenagers and little kids and talk to me the first time, when I talk, because they feel embarrassed, say, oh, maybe, I don't have to say nothing. But later he's coming, he say, oh, I can talk to you. You don't have to call for talk to you. He or she is coming to talk to you. And that is because little by little, the trust is not only one day. It take it longer, Is nobody can trust nobody for 1 week. Oh, I trust you, everything. No, you
Yeah.
know.
Have that one conversation and it's all good, right? No, it doesn't
Yes.
work like that.
Uh-huh.
You gotta
Yes.
keep having that conversation. I like that. We're gonna be talking a lot about talking and communicating and how to do that so that it's received well. Anything else that we can do to help kids repack their suitcase?
Foster openness.
Foster openness. I think one way to do that is by being unjudgmental, not judging, and really meaning what you say. Oh, hey, you can tell me anything. Anything to add, Ted?
Probably continuous assurances to the child that he will have a happy and peaceful life, and that we will be there to continuously guide him and for him to be happy. Yeah.
I like that. Continued guidance, continued. So I'm just going to write down patience really quick on mine. Okay. All right. Keeping that invisible suitcase in mind as we're going through this training. So let's talk just a little bit about how trauma affects youth in care. Trauma causes all kinds of behavior issues. Those thoughts of what has happened roll through the mind on a continual basis. It causes problems with inattention. It causes, especially if it's a buried thing, maybe they're not thinking about it all the time, but then something triggers and and the kid loses it. That can happen. Have you guys seen anything like that where kids who've been through trauma and it affects their behavior later? Like, hey, this is a good kid, but oof, some of these behaviors are, different. Okay, well, it's just something to be aware of, that trauma does affect people differently, and it does cause emotions and behaviors that need to be addressed, because we don't want our kids to have problems in school. We want them to be able to make friends. We want them to get the help that they need when they ask for it, without being labeled a behavior problem. That's why it's important that we address it. And some of the things that we can do are to help youth be more familiar with their physical surroundings, give choices and responsibilities so that they have a sense of control over their environment. Like, if I do this, then this will happen and I'm okay. It really does make a difference. Set limits. We'll talk a lot about that later. provide information to inform youth about what's going to take place in the future. That open communication, again, is really important. Provide opportunities for self-expression. So those kids who do kind of bury their feelings and bury experiences have an opportunity to express those feelings in an open conversation, and it doesn't come out at inappropriate times. Help them maintain a sense of connection and continuity with their culture and their past. We'll talk a lot about that later as well. All right, a question to consider. Why do you need to foster parent your children differently than your biological children? Think about that for a second. Maria, why do you think it's important to parent your foster youth differently?
Bro. And when she moved with my wig, give me a minute. What the fuck is that? And then
I'm sorry, I know hear what you say.
Oh, sure. Why do you foster parent your foster youth differently than your biological children? Why would you treat foster kids differently than your own kids?
For a minute,
My phone have like you hear like different. I'm sorry, I can hear too good. Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
No. Okay.
Okay.
You can repeat, please.
We'll move on. We'll move on. Ted, why do you think it's important to treat foster children differently than you would your own kids?
Yeah, primarily because these foster kids underwent trauma and they have very bad experience in their life, unlike your biological children, which I think did not experience the same things as these foster kids.
Exactly. That's exactly why we would treat foster kids differently than we would, because they come from a different place, they've had different experiences. And so it's important that we take that into consideration and use that trauma-informed space to direct us when we're parenting, for sure. All right, here's a flow chart. How does uncooperative behavior develop? In the preschool years, it's easy to learn that negative behavior can help you get your own way. Throw a screaming tantrum, you might get what you want. Right? We may have all learned that at some point. Hopefully somebody taught us that that's not the way to do it. During the school years, that can lead to relationship difficulties, reduced opportunity for positive skill development. When kids act up in school, teachers might not be as helpful. And it's important to keep that in mind when kids misbehave. It's easier for a teacher to pay attention to kids who are behaving well, as opposed to throwing a tantrum to get their own way or misbehaving in class. So these are things that you want to nip in the bud early so that it doesn't grow in adolescence to becoming part of a deviant peer group and acting even more antisocial. Adults continue to give into the negative behavior and aggression, and it just leads on and on. So important not to do that. Late adolescence and young adulthood, that's going to lead to a lack of skills, social skills, school skills, because you just haven't gotten that socialization that you need. Lack of independence and continued bad behavior. So it just keeps going on and on, which is not good. Any comments on this? I think it's something that we've seen as we go on, you know, growing up through school. All right, and then what can we do about uncooperative behavior? Again, it's something that we want to nip in the bud as early as possible. So we'll talk about that just a little bit. There are ways that we can help. Research shows that behavior improves with close monitoring and supervision. It's one of the reasons that foster kids, they're never unsupervised, ever. They're always with somebody. Effective behavior management and discipline, supportive environments, and pro-social learning opportunities. Okay, we're going to talk about the ABCs. We talk about them all the time. Social learning theory. This theory suggests that we learn how to behave from our social interactions and our environment. Behavior takes place in a context of what happens before and what happens after. All right, so the A is the antecedent. It's what happens before a behavior happens. The behavior is that thing that we see that we're going to identify. It can be either positive or negative. And then the consequence, what happens after. All right, here are some examples. Now, this is more about us. So here's an antecedent. What happens before? There's a horrible day at work. All right, so what's the behavior? You come home, and what do?
You have short temper.
Have a short temper, you maybe say something snarky, and then what happens? There's a consequence.
The consequence would be an argument happening as a result.
Right, there's an argument, everybody feels bad about it. There's a general, you know, cloud over your home. Okay. All right, how about a child? So now the question mark is what happens before? What's the antecedent? We know what the behavior is. The behavior is our child completes their homework alone, which is good. That's a good behavior. We want that to happen. So what might an antecedent be for our child completing their homework on their own?
Maybe asked to complete. If
Yeah,
asked.
we set up a verbal
So we have a-
expectation. Sure. Like, I need you to go do your homework. Okay, all right. So child decides to go and complete their homework on their own. So what's the consequence going to be?
It could be a positive reinforcement or reward or anything positive if the child does it
Sure.
alone.
Like, oh, thank you so much for doing your homework on your own. It looks great. Here's a popsicle. You know, or hey, you get a half hour more time to stay up on your iPad before bed. Or anything. The consequence in this case is most likely going to be a reward. Okay, so tracking behavior. This is when we monitor behavior to help identify areas of strength and areas of concern. So thinking about those ABCs, what happens before the behavior itself, and the consequences. And then you observe and reward positive behavior. And this is the best way to change behavior, is rewarding that positive behavior and giving clear instructions on expectations. Behaviors So we know what they are, have to be observable. You need to be able to see and hear them and or hear them. Determine the problematic behavior and its opposite, positive behavior. We want to notice the frequency, the duration, the intensity, and the setting, the environment that this behavior is taking place. All right, tracking behavior, how do we do it? This is activity 1D in the worksheets, steps for tracking behavior. So you want to pick a problem behavior that you want to work on. And what does it look like or sound like? So as a group, let's us pick a behavior in a child that we would like to stop. For the sake of ease, let's talk about hitting behavior, like hitting a sibling. Because this is going to come up later and we can kind of wrap it all together. So what would be the opposite behavior? I mean, obviously not hitting. But what would be another one? Like thinking about the antecedent, something that's going to come before. What happens before this child hits his sibling? What could be another action they could take instead? I mean, of course, just sitting there is fine, but maybe walking away. And that would be a number 2. All right. And then you have to pick a time to observe. So on your own, just kind of pick a time that you can observe for like an hour straight of your children's interactions and track it. I'm going to choose afternoon before dinner. All right, so on this worksheet, it's during each 1 hour session, you watch your child's behavior during 5 to 10 minute chunks. If you see the problem behavior during that 5 to 10 minute chunk, put a mark in the box. If you see the positive behavior, put a mark in the positive behavior box. And do this for 3 days, an hour a day for 3 days. And pay particular attention to what happens before and what happens right after the consequence of the behavior or the opposite of the behavior. And then mark what you see and make observances. Okay. So the tracking behavior form is number 1D, and we're going to watch a video about specifically this. And then we'll discuss and fill in our little behavior tracking form. Yeah. There we go.
I'm always impressed with how much we know about what's going on with our children. But sometimes we're just too close to a problem to see it clearly. What can you do when this happens? Well, take stock of the situation first, and then find out what the facts are. Here's an easy way to get a clearer picture. It's called tracking.
Hello. Yes, this is Estelle Brantley. Hi, Jan. Yes, I remember you. How are you? Yes, I can meet with you. May I ask why? 3 o'clock is fine. Okay, bye. Oh, hi, Mrs. Brantley. Come on in. Hi, how you doing? Pretty good. I'm sorry to have to call you down here, Mrs. Brantley, but I'm concerned about Trevor and I wanted to talk to you in person. Well, I'm glad you did. As I told you on the phone today, Trevor got into another fight, and that's the third one this week. I didn't know anything about the first two. I thought as much. Do you have any idea why Trevor might be having such a hard time? No, I can't figure that boy out. Well, let's start with his behavior after school. To tell you the truth, my house is a madhouse after they all come home from school. Why do you think that is? I'm not sure, but I think Trevor starts a lot of stuff with his brother and sister. Well, what makes you think he's the root of the conflict? He's always hitting someone or yelling, cussing at them. Well, how many times does he fight or yell within that hour after they all get home from school? I don't know. All the time. To be perfectly honest, I don't even care. All I know is I wanted to stop. Well, how many times does he just get along with his siblings at home? Now, how am I supposed to know that? Mrs. Brantley, I'm not just trying to ask you a lot of impossible questions. The answers to these kinds of things will help us to figure out how to make things better for Trevor. How's that? If you do know how often Trevor yells or fights, you can begin to see what leads up to it. And if you can understand what causes it, you may be able to do something about it. You may have a point there. You see, I'm not just looking at the problem. I also want you to understand how important it is to encourage Trevor when he's not acting out as well. Well, anything that will help, I'm willing to try. How do we start? Well, pick a problem you want to work on and write it down. Try something simple. Hi, honey.
Hey, kids asleep?
Thankfully.
What's wrong, honey?
I'm just worried about Trevor. I had to meet with the school counselor today.
What happened?
He's acting out in school, just like he does here.
Enough is enough. We need to put our foot down. That boy just can't go around fighting all the time.
Frankly,
Why? So I can come home to you being upset every night? Not anymore. I should have put my foot down a long time ago. Show that boy was boss.
Frank, try and calm down.
What should we do? What do you think we should do?
Well, I met with the counselor, and we came up with a way to get to the root of the problem. She said that if I write down what he's actually doing, then we can see what's really going on.
I don't need a counselor to tell me how to deal with my son.
Well, I do. And if you swallow your pride for a few minutes and let me explain what she suggested, you can see that it would make good sense too.
I'm listening.
So, if the world were perfect,
Which it's not.
if it were, he wouldn't be hitting or arguing with anyone. Instead, he'd be getting along with them. So what I'm going to do is track his behavior on this sheet of paper for an hour after they come home from school. I'm going to write down when he's acting out in the problem behavior column, and when he's getting along, I'm going to put a mark in the positive behavior column. Then after a few days, we should be able to see what's really going on.
Okay. But it's easy to see when he's fighting. How are we supposed to know when he's not starting anything or acting out? What, one mark for every second he just sits there or breathes?
That was my question too. The counselor said that for every 10 minutes that goes by and there's no fighting, then we can place a mark in the positive behavior column. But you're still not sure.
No, I just don't see how this is going to change Trevor.
It's not supposed to change him. It's supposed to give us a picture of what's actually going on.
And once we know what's going on,
Then we can change his behavior.
okay.
Hey there, how you guys doing? Hey, how was that test? I guess. You guessed? Dang, Jeff is a math and actually let me take the test for me. Girl, stop taking that nonsense. Get out of my bowl. Anyway, where's the math man?
He'll be here. He's just fine.
Hey there.
Come on.
I think so. There's only room in this kitchen for one cook, and that is me. So go outside and finish dinner.
All right.
Go watch TV or something. Give me a chance to finish what I need to do. Man, if you don't move. Man, what? Stop, man. Trevor, what's going on? Steven's pushing me. Steven, you need to stay on your side of the couch. Yeah, but we're faster than that. It's funny though. Hey, Alicia, look what's on Fox, will you? If you're not gonna use the remote, then give it to me. Yo, Jim, stop. You two stop playing around. Just listen to mom. Just listen to mom. Quit. You quit, huh? After all. Stop doing that. Trevor, he started it with me. Huh? You the punk. Enough. Hey, Vic. How was work? Well, let me just put it like this. It is good to be home. So how'd everything go here? Well, it went, but I do feel a little bit better about it. I see you've been sticking with that tracking stuff. Yeah, for a couple of days now. What? Well, I've been keeping track for an hour after they all come home from school. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that Trevor does start a lot of stuff. Of course. But not as much as we thought. My, look at how much of the time they didn't think. Never seems that way to me. Well, that's why we agreed to try this out. Now we know we should be giving them attention for getting along. I'm all for that. Another thing I realized while I was tracking, even though Trevor acts out, a lot of the time Stephen is provoking him. Really? I guess it was worth all this paperwork just to find that out. How did we miss that? Well, we're too close. We hear a noise, we look up, and there'd be Trevor getting there fighting somebody. Right. Besides, the school counselor told me that people are wired to pay attention to negative behaviors. Mm-hmm. We're just like everyone else. We pay attention to the bad stuff. Yeah, but we still want to put a limit to the bad stuff. And we will. But now we know to look at Stephen's behavior too. I know that's right.
All right, what do you think? Something that strikes me, I've seen this video a number of times, and one thing that comes up in my mind, my children are grown now, but when they were little, my son and my daughter were really close in age, and my son had kind of volatile, he was more emotional and acted out just a little bit more, and my daughter was really quiet. And when we were looking at this behavior, geez, okay, what is going on? He's crying. Oh my goodness, what is happening? And what we were finding out was, before some of this stuff would happen, my daughter would be like whispering to him, like egging him on, like bugging him. And then he would be like, all upset. Oh my goodness. And so when I see that, like, I totally understand. Like, I've got to deal with this other kid because she is causing this. Was there anything else that stood out to you guys about this?
They realized that he was being provoked. Most of his behaviors were coming from other.
Yeah. I think it was notable too, that they were starting to realize, oh, it's not happening as much as we thought. And we really need to be paying attention to the times that he is behaving and give him attention for that. I thought was a really good one too. So we're going to take a look at activity 1D, and we'll just use what we saw in the video to track this and try and practice, because tracking behavior really is something that requires practice to get the hang of it and use it in your own day-to-day when you need to. So, antecedent, what happened before the behavior? All right, so what I wrote down is that his brother pushed him, he was getting in his space, he was provoking him. And then, of course, the problem behavior that would be the first thing you would fill out anyway is the fighting, the hitting. You would write that in that box. And in this video, it happened twice in the time frame that they were measuring. And then the consequences. I'm just going to write down that he gets yelled at, mom yells at him. And the antecedent for the positive behavior is a little more complicated, I think, because it's what doesn't happen. He isn't provoked, so he doesn't act out. He gets along when his brother isn't there to antagonize him. And then the consequence for me on this sheet anyway is going to be that mom's happy. And that's always a good thing. It's always good when mom's happy at home. Any other thoughts on the behavior tracking? Ted, do you think that this is a tool that you could use with your kids? Ted, can you hear me?
Hmm?
Do you think this is a tool that would be helpful in your home?
Yes. Yeah. Mm.
Have you had situations where this would have worked?
for me.
Mhm.
Oh, right now we don't have any for as regards to foster kids.
Okay,
We don't have any foster kid right now.
okay.
Uh, but I think you can use this with your other kids probably.
Sure.
Use this technique to see what's going on.
Yeah, it can definitely help when there's a behavior that needs to um, be changed so that they can function better in their lives for sure.
Uh,
All right, session 1 summary and wrap up. Today, we learned more about the 3 factors associated for success for youth in care, the importance of relationships, the impact of trauma on youth, social learning theory, that's the ABCs. We'll talk about the ABCs all the time, and tracking behavior. All right. Let's take just a little break. Let's take 7 minutes, and then we'll come back and we're going to do session 2.
okay.
All right, and we're back. You guys with me? One more session to go today, and then we'll be back on Wednesday. All right, session 2 is about setting expectations. And this is what we're going to base our discipline methodology on, is setting expectations so kids know what to do, not what not to do. I'm going to give them instructions. Catching kids being good, praising them, and following through with rewards and other forms of positive reinforcement are good ways to improve behavior. Absolutely true. Any comments on session 1? Anything anybody needs to talk out? I'll be sending everybody a to-go sheet for the Together Facing the Challenge. Also, it's kind of a summary of the entire training so that you have that available to you. It's really helpful, it really is. So that will go out after all of the trainings are over. All right. So we're going to talk about the significance of using praise and incentives as parenting tools, understanding how daily check-ins build relationships, identify effective versus ineffective instructions, and understand the importance of establishing and maintaining a clear set of house rules. So what to do, not what not to do. So much easier. All right. What kind of behaviors do you expect when working with youth in your care? We talked a little bit about this, how we can expect maybe some unacceptable behaviors, some negative behaviors, behaviors that would not be appropriate. So we know that there are things that we're going to have to work on to change a little bit with our kids. So hopefully this helps. The power of praise. We want to catch them being good, no matter what that good looks like, even if they're just sitting there quietly. I love how you were just sitting there quietly right now and just with your thoughts. That's so nice that you're able to just sit and be quiet sometimes. Oh, look at you, you picked up your shoes. You put your shoes in the right place. That is amazing. Thank you so much for doing that. Praise is free. You can spread that all over the place. It doesn't cost a thing. So you can be really free with the praise. Whatever you see your kid doing that's good, you need to say that out loud. Don't wait for, hey, don't put your shoes over there. You put your shoes away. Don't wait for that. If they're doing it right, hey, you did that right. Thank you so much. It's wonderful. And I'll load a video up too and share with you guys that's really helpful with the use of effective praise and being instructive. This can help youth with their self-esteem, like especially, you know, kids who've only ever been told you're doing that wrong, you're doing that wrong, you're doing that wrong. Like, well, I must be dumb because I can never get it right. So it's important to be really free with that praise. Hey, you're doing a good job. That's great. Thank you so much. I like that. Those kinds of words are really important for kids to hear. Kids notice, even if it seems like they don't, they're listening to what you're saying to them. And so it's important that you choose your words very carefully and be positive with your language. Praise as soon as possible after a good behavior is the most effective. That will have the maximum benefit. But hey, if you didn't catch it immediately afterwards, but you really don't think it doesn't matter, it does. You want to be as quick as possible, but hey, if you see something, say something, for sure. And use labeled praise when appropriate. So let's talk about labeled praise and unlabeled praise. What is it? It identifies exactly what the youth did well. Hey, you picked up your shoes. Thank you so much. Nice work. And that indicates that you did something well. Like unlabeled praise is just saying, hey, good job. But you didn't say what exactly it was. It didn't, it's just, oh, okay. Okay, good job. May not be as effective when you're using that the first time around. So here's an example. I like the way you completed your homework before dinner, as opposed to good job or nice work. Like maybe they don't know what it is you liked or what it was, unless you've established that before. You should use labeled praise when you want to increase a behavior that doesn't happen often. So if you've got a kid who's not completing their homework before dinner, they're waiting until it's bedtime or after bedtime, or oh, I can't go to sleep now, I still have math. So you want to, oh, look, you're working on your homework, good job. Get that done before bedtime, before dinner time, before it's too late. Or when you're working on establishing a new behavior and you want that labeled. So that would be a good time to use unlabeled praise. So when you notice routine behaviors that the youth has already mastered, they're already good at doing their homework, they're already good at putting their shoes away, they're already good at cleaning up after themselves, whatever that is. Oh, good job. And they know that what they're doing is right. And you want to continue to acknowledge what they're doing. And when the child does something positive that they do frequently. So that's when you would use unlabeled praise. All right, so think about some of the incentives that you have in your own life as an adult, like getting a paycheck, earning a promotion, receiving praise from your boss, having your child tell you that the meal you made was wonderful. Most of us probably wouldn't continue to go to work if we didn't get a paycheck. Much as we love our work, as much as it makes us feel whole and good and all of that, without the paycheck, probably not going to happen. Earning a promotion, also a very nice incentive to keep working, to keep doing a good job, to keep learning. Receiving praise is always nice at work, especially, if you have ever worked in a job where that wasn't present. Praise is so important and it's so instructive. Like, oh, okay, good. Now I know I'm doing it right. This is what's expected. This is great. I don't know about this, having your child tell you that a meal was wonderful. I still have to cook dinner. So it's nice to hear though. That's nice to hear, but I have to keep doing that. No matter what, they're going to get fed. Incentives not only make us feel good, they also increase the likelihood that we'll keep doing it in the future. So incentives are extremely important. We want to use rewards daily to encourage positive behaviors. We can keep them inexpensive, frequent. Those are the most effective. Praise, like I said, praise is free. You can keep dishing that out all the time, all day, every day. Include youth in determining rewards that are important to them and make sure to follow through. And again, that goes back to building trust and creating a safe place, following through on promises, and when possible, have incentives and rewards connect to the behaviors being addressed. Okay, so this is activity 2C, the incentives list. So go ahead and unmute and let's talk about some incentives that might be good for kids who need to change behavior. I did one really recently with a family who had a 9-year-old who just did not. That kid was not going to shower. He was not going to brush his teeth. That was not happening. So we created a behavior chart and came up with some incentives that, okay, well, if you're working towards this, and it was video game points. He was working towards video game points. And that was really important to him. So guess what? He started showering, he started brushing his teeth, and was just really happy to mark those smiley faces every day so that at the end of the week or 2 weeks, he was getting those video game points. So it really can be effective. I was so happy it worked. His dad was so mad at the kid. Any others that you guys have seen work? Another one that I've used is kids get to pick the dinner choice. That's when they get to have a little bit of control over what happens to the whole family and makes them a part in kind of big decision making. So choices like that can be really important. And my daughters will work for stickers. My 24-year-old will still work just for stickers on a chart. We like that. More screen time is also a good one. If you're a parent who limits screen time, providing just a little bit more is a good incentive for some kids. And it's also important to talk about the incentives. On some of the lists that I've seen, finishing a puzzle together as a family is a reward. If somebody were to say that to me, I would be like, what did I do to you that you are going to make me do a puzzle? Are you crazy? I'm not doing that. What do I have to do to not do a puzzle? So it's important to get feedback for sure. Yeah. And here's some good ones. The park time is good time. Park time, family time. So be sure to make an incentives list here on activity 2C. Ted, what did you come up with? Sorry, Ted, can you hear me?
Oh, Ted, probably probably watch a movie and treat your kid to a good meal after he has done something good in school, like if he receives a reward, an award in school.
Yeah, those are always good ones, for sure. All right. So it's always good to have a list of things to offer when we're talking about incentives. So we've made a list to use later. Fun activities are always good. Having a pre-approved friend over for an afternoon, sleepovers, going to the mall or to the park, additional privileges, time, later bedtime, more time. So those are all things that can work. And again, you'll just want to make sure that these are things that are important to your foster child. All right, now let's talk about daily check-ins. The purpose of a daily check-in is to help build a relationship with your youth. Establish a predictable time each day for 5 to 10 minutes. And you're gonna build a praise sandwich out of your check-in. First, you'll talk about something specific that your foster child is doing well. Then you'll want to address the behavior that's of concern. And then end with praising the youth again for the things that they are doing well, so that the concern is kind of wrapped in a hug, so that they know you're not being attacked, you don't have to get defensive. This is a good way to eliminate those kinds of negative feelings when addressing concerning behavior. All right. Daily check-ins don't have to be long. It can just take a few minutes. But when you're addressing a behavior, especially with older kids, it's important to be consistent with it. Like, this hasn't gone away. This isn't going to go away until you change your behavior. And this is how we do that, is with the check-in. All right, so here are some tips with the daily check-in. Be creative about a time and location. Maybe go to the park. Like, let's go for a walk and talk about this. Let's maybe go have an ice cream and talk about it. Be creative with it, stick with it, be really consistent. Because again, it's not going to go away until the behavior changes. Listen for problems when they're small. Listen to the objections from kids of why they think they can't change that behavior, or obstacles that are actually, getting in their way that you can help with. If it's something that's difficult for you to have those one-on-one conversations with foster kids, it can be helpful to role play it. So with a case manager, with your spouse, with a friend, with your non-primary caregiver, and then try it at home. And it's something that can take a little bit of practice to get right and to stay in control of the conversation and without it deteriorating or devolving into something that is defensive or negative. You want to keep it positive. And the more you practice, the better you'll get at it. All right. So let's talk about giving effective instructions. We were talking about that check-in. And these are some of the conversations that may come up in a check-in. All right, Jill is a 14-year-old, is watching her favorite show on TV, and during a commercial, her foster mom says, "When this show is over, please set the table for dinner." Jill says, "Okay," and finishes watching the program. When the show ends, she gets up and sets the table. Jill's mother thanks her for setting the table. All right, so let's talk about it. What did Jill's mother do well when giving instructions?
She set a time frame and she gave him direct.
Yeah, absolutely. So she wasn't like, get up right now, stop doing what you're doing and go do it. That could lead to a conflict for sure. So she definitely avoided a conflict by doing that and giving her a time frame. Anything else?
Yeah, the mother praised Jill immediately after she set up the table.
Yep, that's important. She did what she was told, and so the mom did her part and praised her. Thank you so much. All right, so when giving effective instructions, don't give instructions when the child is already engaged in doing something else. So Jill was already watching a TV show and would probably be kind of upset if she was interrupted to have to go and do something else. Don't repeat the request over and over. It only reinforces non-compliance. Don't say it unless you mean it. Don't over-explain or talk too much. And don't ask a question, avoid, don't you think, or let's do this. Just be direct. Do make sure you have the child's full attention. Do make sure you are clear and specific. Stay calm. Reinforce the positive and give a consequence for minding. And give 1 or 2 simple tasks at a time. Did I skip any out there? Okay, there we go. All right, so activity 2E in your packet. We are just going to pick a couple of these and do them together. Samantha, which one would you like to do?
I'll do the first one.
All right. So the first one on activity 2E says, Micah, after lunch, you need to clean up the dishes, take out the trash, and go sweep the living room. All right. Is this effective or ineffective?
Ineffective.
Yes. And why?
It's ineffective.
And why?
Why? Because she gave a list of things to do consecutively, so they weren't direct, and also the tone that she used was not positive.
Yeah, that's true. It's just too much at once. One thing at a time is always better, for sure. All right, and Samantha, how would you reword it?
I would do step by step. So I would ask Micah, after lunch, can you please clean up the dishes? And after they've done that, I would ask them to take out the trash. And after they've done that, I would ask them to sweep the living room floor.
Right. And they would come back and say, okay, I did that. And then the reward for good work is more work. So
praise and then more instruction.
Praise and then, hey, would you do this? Thank you so much. All right, Ted, which one of these would you like to do?
Probably number 2.
All right, so number 2 is let's go clean the mess you made. Is this effective or ineffective?
For me, I think it's not effective.
No, it's not. Why isn't it effective?
Yeah, because it's not being definite or specific what mess it is talking about.
Right.
I think should be more specific of what she's referring to, so that the child will understand it and fix it.
Right. Yeah, I agree. It's not clear language. She's also kind of blaming. Geez, everybody
Yeah.
makes messes. So, yeah, no need to be like that. Just please go pick up your candy wrappers. Please pick up your dishes. Whatever that is. Just a please do this. Off you go. Thank you so much. Would do it. Okay. And there are a number of other ones to review. If you're viewing the recording, please pick one and say why it's effective or ineffective, and then write how you would reword it if it's ineffective, or what is effective if it is effective. All right, house rules. It's the first thing we tell you to do when we come out to your house. Make your house rules. It can help youth in care feel more, it sets the boundaries. It helps them feel safe when there's house rules. It really does. And it can be extremely beneficial. How do you think house rules can help youth who have experienced trauma?
It sets
Absolutely. It sets those expectations. And that may not be something that was there for them before. So it creates order when there may have been chaos before. When there are no clear house rules, when the rules are whatever irritates mom or dad, every day is a guessing game. So this makes it so it's not a guessing game. These are the rules. Follow them. Great. Safe. Nice. Good. So a good way to create some house rules is to involve youth in creating the house rules. That also gives kids a little bit of control. Be clear and specific and keep it short. And don't use too many words when explaining. Don't over explain. Again, review the rules frequently. If you do weekly meetings, review the rules every week. And this is also an opportunity for praise. Hey, these are the rules. Everybody did a good job following them. Yay. And if there's a problem, that's a good time to address it. Post rules in a visible place. And this is something that's required in all of the foster homes, is to have those rules so that they can be seen, especially for the older kids. For the kids who are little and maybe can't read the house rules, that's why it's important to review them frequently. All right, so some things to consider. Physical interaction, it ensures physical safety. So think about the hitting, being in one another's space, things like that. Privacy. So rules around the bathroom, rules around bedrooms, rules around getting dressed, things like that. Food. Be sure that everyone is clear about what's acceptable. And for foster kids, this can be another tricky thing, something that you might have to watch. A lot of our kids have come from insecure situations where they may not have had food. So they may want to take the food and hide it in their rooms. And if that is something that's not acceptable to you, then you're gonna have to find a way to make that rule possible for them. And household routines, ensure that the household runs smoothly. So you can build that into your house rules as well. Okay, so we'll watch this video. It's a short one, and then we'll talk about it.
Every home has basic rules, even if they aren't spoken. Clearly defined house rules help to set limits on behavior, personal space, and safety. Clear rules also make most children feel freer to be themselves. So it's important to tell kids about house rules in a way that they can understand them.
Oh, here's your new room. How about if I give you some time to get situated and then I'll come back and give you the tour? Okay. Yes. Terry, can I come in? Sure. You ready for a tour? Okay, great. Well, as you already know, this is your room, your own personal space. You can arrange it any way you like. If your door is closed, Tony and I will always knock before we come in, unless we think it's absolutely necessary to enter without knocking. If you have friends in here with you, you need to make sure that door stays open, okay? Okay. All right, on to the rest of the tour. This is our room. You need permission to enter our room. The door is shut. Please knock and wait to be invited in. That's pretty much the case for all the rooms in the house, including yours. The door is closed, knock, wait to be asked inside. That's especially true for the bathroom. I'm sure you agree. This is Angela's room. Angela, do you have a minute? Yeah. Great. I want to introduce you to Terry. She just arrived. Terry, this is Angela. Angela, Terry. What's up? Hey. You two can talk later. I'm going to give her a house tour. Okay. All right. Bye. Later. Okay, the bathroom's across the hall, and let's go back downstairs. Okay. This, of course, is the living room. It's a great place to hang out with your friends, which, remember, you can only have over if Tony or I are home. We have a curfew of 9 p.m. on nights before school and 10 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. Okay? Sure. All right, let's go. Let's see, what else? If there's an emergency, there's a phone to dial 911. There's also a list of numbers underneath, including my work number and Tony's work number. So if you ever have any questions and we're not home, you can go ahead and call us at work. There's a lot of things that need to be done to keep the house up, and so that's one of the house rules. Everyone needs to do her chores. Angela does the dishes twice a week, Tony mows the lawn, and I do all the cooking, along with a lot of other things. So we can talk about your chores later, okay? All right. This is where we keep the house rules, so you don't have to remember everything I just said. All right. The most important one is here at the bottom. If there's something you don't know, don't try and guess. Just go ahead and ask us. There's no such thing as a stupid question, and we are here to help you. I know there's a lot of differences from where you last lived, but we want you to feel comfortable here. So if you have a question, just ask, okay? I will. Okay. Do you have any questions? What will my chores be? Well, what do you like to do? Well, I like to cook. I could help you do some cooking. That would be great. Let's talk about what you like to cook.
All right. What does she do well? One thing that I think is nice is that she gives her a moment to process her new environment and kind of sit in her room for a few minutes and look around and kind of settle a little bit before going in. The other thing I like a lot is that she's really respectful and she knocks before saying, oh, can I come in to your room? That's always nice to give people their space, no matter what situation you're in. So I like that. Was there anything else that you guys saw?
Oh, she let her participate in the formulation of the house rules. Like
Yeah,
when the parent asks her what her chores are for her,
yeah,
then she at least gave her the opportunity to participate in the formulation of these house rules.
yeah, I like that a lot too. And I like that the rules were written down, like she said them verbally and then said, this is everything I just said. So I like that one too. I thought she was pretty clear. I don't think she overtalked or anything like that. All right. So take a second and think about the house rules that you have in place. And think about that. Are the rules and expectations specific and clear? Are there too few or too many? Are the expectations age appropriate? Because definitely the rules for 5-year-olds are going to be different for the rules for 15-year-olds. So think about that. And are the rules written down and posted? And are the rules reviewed and revised? So just because a rule is a rule, doesn't mean we can't change it. We can amend for sure. All right. So think about your house rules, and let's just talk about a few. I know that in my house, bedtime's 9 o'clock. I am in bed at 9 o'clock. And if you're going to talk to me after 9 o'clock, you better be dead in a ditch because I'm sleepy. So think about the things that are really important to you. What are some of your house rules? Things that are really important to you. And these are going to go back to your values as well. Ted, what's one of your house rules?
Bedtime.
Bedtime?
Yeah, one of the house rules there is bedtime, where we stated that the bedtime is at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
At the same time, we also indicated the meal time, because usually we eat together.
Yeah, those routines are really important, and we talked about that. So building the routine into the home rules is it's good. Keep it all tied together. I know your house is also really clean, so I'm sure you have rules about cleanliness and picking up.
Yes.
Some of the other things that may be on here is you're wiping up the bathroom after you've used it, not leaving water on the floor, putting your dishes in the dishwasher when they're done, or even making a schedule of who does the dishes on what days, things like that. These are all things that can be put into house rules. But you're going to want to think about what's really important to your family and where you live. For instance, if you live close to a busy street, it may be important to make a rule. Do not cross the fence and go into the street. Stay on this side of the house. So rules regarding safety are probably most important. Keeping hands to yourself is another one that can be really important, especially for little kids. It's important to say that one over and over, write it down, say it out loud all the time, so that everyone in the house is safe. And if you need to revise your rules after you get specific kids in your house, then that's what you do. I like this house rules because it has room for signatures. When you're reviewing rules with kids, you can say, look, you signed this. You knew what the rules were. So let's talk about what's going on. How come you're not following the rules? And that can be really important as well. Something that can be reviewed in weekly meetings and in daily one-on-one check-ins. All right. We're a quiet group and we're ending early. Today we learned more about the power of praise, the power of incentives, building relationships by having a daily check-in, giving effective instructions, and developing effective house rules. All right, so we will be back on Wednesday at 10 o'clock to do the third session. And that one it'll take about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Does anybody have any questions about anything we reviewed? All right. Let me know if you're viewing this on a recording. Be sure to reach out to me either by phone or email. I'll be happy to review any questions that you have. All right, guys, thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye, Ted. We'll see you soon.
See you soon.